What's going on, everybody? Married at First Sight, where are they now? Season 15. Let's get into it. We have a lot to cover. We have no time to waste. Let's start off with Miguel and Lindy. They're at the beach. They're taking wedding photos. Why? I don't know. I guess they wanted to have photos more to their liking and were not exactly pleased with the photos that they did on the show, because I didn't understand. So they take these photos at the beach and they're dressed up in their, wedding attire that they wore on their wedding day. And it was just, to me, like, okay, fine. Y'all do whatever the hell y'all want to do. It's y'all's money, whatever. Y'all do whatever the hell y'all want to do. But we didn't see the results of the pictures, but the poses that they were making to me were just a little bit too posy. I like photographers who know how to capture moments and not stage people like they're mannequins. And some of the poses that Miguel and Lindy were giving at the direction of their photographer, to me, was just a little bit posy because they kind of come across as stiff. Now, you can pose people and the photo can still come across as a little bit more natural. What I was seeing, I really didn't like it, especially the scenes, the photos where Lindy's head, they were like standing, I think, like face to face, and Lindy's head was completely turned the other way. So all you saw was the back of her head and Miguel's face. And I'm like, what is this? Anyways, moving on. So they talk a good game about their relationship, about how wonderful it is, how well they're getting along. I'm not buying it. I will never buy the Miguel and Lindy story. I am not picking up whatever the hell they're putting down. I don't believe in the genuineness of their relationship. I think Miguel and Lindy are obsessed with appearing to be like they're this perfect, loving, happy couple. I don't buy it. With all the stuff that they went through on the show, I cannot believe that things are as copacetic as they want us to believe. They talk about buying a home. Lindy wants to buy a home right away because later on, we learn that they plan on having children after they buy a home. And so I'm assuming that she's ready to start having babies, but she wants to have a permanent home, a forever home. And Miguel says that right now he is still free and floaty. No, he says he's still free floaty. I don't know what that means. I don't know what language that is, free floaty, but I'm interpreting it as in he is not ready to like develop roots in one area for 20 to 30 years. Okay. He's probably still in that mode of, you get a condo or you get a cute little townhouse and, every 2 years you're moving somewhere else. And so he says he's not really ready to settle down like that. But he's going to settle down like that because that's what Lindy wants. And Lindy always gets what she wants. Moving on to Alexis and Kristen. So the entire episode was like the constant theme was this Alexis and Kristen budding friendship, this Thelma and Louise type of thing going on between Alexis and Kristen. So Alexis and Kristen, because there's like multiple scenes of them doing things, just the two of them, and them organizing things together, etc. So Alexis and Kristen, they meet up and they're talking about who's been sliding into their DMs. One of the people that slid into Kristen's DMs, the first thing that she said about him was, "Oh, he looked a lot like Mitch." Y'all know how I feel about Kristen and Mitch. I think that Kristen still wants to be with Mitch. I think that she wants to be with him. That's all I got to say. She still wants to be with him. She is still holding a torch for her boy Mitch. They talk about how, wonderful it is to be single, how they're not ready to jump into a whole nother relationship. But these are the same women that were willing to marry a stranger at the drop of a dime. They're willing to risk it all to marry a stranger. But all of a sudden now, they're so gun shy about relationships and men, and they're just, they just want to be single and work on themselves. Kristen hasn't spoken to Mitch since the reunion at the time that these two women have gotten together. She hasn't spoken to Mitch since the reunion. Alexis says that she has talked to Justin now and again. Alexis talks about how the public really hasn't seen the full scale of Justin. She says that Justin, there's a scale. There's the sad, pouty, gloomy, I want to cry all the time Justin, the really emotional Justin. And then she says on the other side of the spectrum, spectrum is angry Justin. And she says that the public never got to see that, but she experienced that, by living with him. But we do get a taste of that a little bit later. Kristen is moving to New York City for work because she got this really huge promotion, and yeah, good for her. So when Alexis isn't trying to break up other people's marriages and trying to make men cry, she's a pretty dope person. She's a really dope girl. Like, what I noticed about Alexis and that I really like about her is that she's a good conversationalist. She's a good listener, and she asks the right questions. Even if she's just having like a regular conversation with, somebody on the cast. She just knows how to listen, and she looks like she's interested in what the other person is saying, and she asks the right questions, the questions that evoke more information from the other person. And I think she needs to really consider getting her own talk show because she's got the looks, she's got the brains, she's got the talent for it, or even consider getting a podcast. Or I think they need to bump little Rudy Huxtable off and let's put on Alexis for the host of the after party, because she's been through it personally and she'll know the questions to ask. And I think she would just be really, and she's the full package when it comes to something like that, like something in television. Now it's going to be Kristen's birthday, and for her birthday, she wants to have like one final getaway for all the couples, and we'll see how that goes. Stasha, her mother, comes over. They talk about her relationship with Nate. She tells her mom that Nate moved out. Nate is not there. And they are going through like a separation. They're having their marital issues, and she considers themselves separated. I think she's being overly dramatic when she says that, but whatever. She says that they're currently separated. Stasha wanted to move at warp speed when it came to their relationship. She wanted Nate to commit his whole entire life. I mean, when you get married, you are committing your whole entire life, for sure. But obviously the reality of this show is that they still don't really know each other. And unless there's like, this really big, huge, deep connection between the two people, it really is like they're just dating, even though they're legally married. And so Stasha wanted him to profess his undying love to her. I want to be with you forever, for the rest of my life. You're the one for me. This is it. I'll die without you, Stasha. I have to be with you. I can't breathe without you. That's what she was looking for. And Nate was just giving her, well, let's just take it day by day and see how it goes. And so she was not liking that. So that led to a whole lot of problems. And, now they're like currently separated. So her mother was like, well, the speed that you move in relationships is not like the normal speed that everybody else is moving to. So you're going to have to wait for him to catch up to you. And that's okay if he's not at your level, if he's not at your pace, but y'all still need to work on it. And then the mother tells her that, Nate called her. And he wanted advice on how to get his woman back. And so the mother told Nate that, marriage it's a lot of hard work and you have to be patient and so on and so forth. So the mother seems like she is rooting for them to work out their issues, which is good. So let's move on to Mitch and Justin. So Mitch and Justin, they want to hang out. Do they go play basketball? No. Do they go out for beers? No. Do they go out to eat? No. They go out to pick up trash. Yes. Mitch and Justin are literally picking up trash, and that's how they're spending their time together. So they're picking up trash, and then the conversation leads to Alexis, and Justin says that Alexis had been really inappropriate, disrespectful, and he's really pissed off at her. Now, he was talking like, just in general, but later on we find out that he was referring to a very specific thing that Alexis had done that got him all riled up, but we'll get to that later. So Justin still seems sad and gloomy, and like a thundercloud is constantly hanging over him, and he's just like Dopey the dog. And they talk about whether or not he's going to be apologizing to Nate for what happened at the reunion. Justin says he's not going to apologize to Nate or for his actions towards Nate, but he says that he is willing to apologize to everybody else for how he behaved at the reunion. Then they talk about Nate making this pass at him. And Mitch seems, like everybody else with a brain, we know that Nate was not making a pass at Justin. That's, blatantly obvious. But we don't want to, nobody wants to just come out and call Justin a liar. Like, hey, you're a big fat liar. He was not making a pass at you. So people are still kind of like tiptoeing around this issue with him because they don't really know like what's what, but they kind of are leaning towards he wasn't making a pass at you, but you don't want to discredit how this man is really feeling. So Mitch is like, do you really think he was really trying to make a pass at you? And Justin was like, oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. He was making a pass at me. And Mitch says, he tries to be very diplomatic. He was like, well, maybe that's how you interpreted it, but do you think that that was his intention? And Justin's like, yep, that was his intention. He wanted to get with me. Yep, he wanted me. So it doesn't, it absolutely did not work. Mitch trying to get Justin to see the other side of it, to kind of look at it from a different point of view. Justin wasn't having it. So he says that when he sees Nate at the getaway, because, they're talking about the getaway and whether or not they're going to attend. He says that when he sees him at the getaway, he's not going to apologize to him. He's like really adamant about, I'm not going to apologize to him. And he says he's just going to stay the hell away from him. But he did say that he was willing to have a conversation with Nate if Nate was willing to have a conversation with him. Deep down inside, Justin, you want to apologize to that man. Moving on, Kristen and Nate. So Kristen goes over to Nate. This is the stuff that I cannot stand. The fluff, just to make the show 2 hours. And I understand the whole idea of wanting to make the show 2 hours because it's a lot more advertising money that they get. I understand that, but can you make it interesting and stop putting stuff in there just to put stuff in there? Kristen going to see Nate was totally like fake, because Kristen and Alexis were like the glue holding this whole entire episode together. So I guess they kind of constantly have to move them around to go see different cast members. So Kristen goes to see Nate as if they're like BFFs or something. And they go there to talk about, Kristen, she's like, oh, I heard about you and Stasha separating. And so Nate talks about that, whatever the hell their issues are. And, basically Kristen is like, okay, y'all need to fight for y'all's marriage and, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, I'm having a getaway and I want you to come. And then, she tells him, you got to go romance your wife and, go get her back. This whole thing of romancing your wife when you're having issues with her. Do women fall for that? Do women fall for that? Like him just showing up with roses and chocolate. Is that enough? No, we need to have a conversation. We need to do a deep dive into what's really going on here. I don't want romance. I want resolution. Moving on. Miguel and Lindy. They're looking at houses, y'all. What did I tell you? When we first saw them and Lindy first brought up looking at houses, Miguel was like, oh, I don't really know. The next time we see them, they're looking at houses because Lindy's going to get what Lindy wants. Because he doesn't want to get his ass beat, basically, by her. He doesn't want her yelling at him all night long. So he's just going to follow her lead and do whatever the hell Lindy wants to do because he's scared of the consequences. So they go look at this house. It's a really nice house. And, she talks about, they're like in the living room area, the living room space, and she's looking at the wall and she's talking about, we should put really big blown up pictures of our wedding on these walls. What? You see, I think that's kind of tacky, no shade to people that do that, but to put huge, big blown up pictures, photos of yourself at whatever event, at whatever point in your life, like in a general area where, a lot of people are going to be gathering where a lot of people are going to be, getting together or whatever in such a public area of your home, like in your living room, I think is doing a bit much. I think a little 8x10 on the little table by the couch or something like that, a little 8x, that's fine. But big blown up pictures in a big general area, no, that's doing the most. So if it's a painting, that's huge, no problem. But for some reason, the photos of y'all's wedding that y'all took at the beach looking like mannequins, I don't know. And the fact that she wants that in such a public area of the home proves that she's trying to really show people we're good, we're perfect, we're happy. Look at these huge, 15x12 photos of us or whatever that hell. So now if you want to have a big picture like that, like in your hallway or in your own bedroom, I don't have an issue with that. But in a big general public area, no bueno. So they're looking at the house. The house is fine. And they talk about, kids. And she says, I want to have kids when we're able to have a home. And he's like, yeah, kids are really expensive, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter what Miguel says. It doesn't matter. Anytime that I see Lindy and Miguel and they're having a conversation, I don't care how adamantly opposed Miguel is to whatever Lindy is saying. At the end of it all, he's going to agree and he's going to follow Lee because he doesn't want to get his ass beat. Okay, moving on. Stasha and Nate. So Nate's trying to win his woman back. He goes over to her house and he brings painting supplies and he brings canvases and he brings paint. But it appears the only paint that he brought was black paint because that's the only paint that they used. So Nate, I don't know what happened to Nate. I don't know if Nate's been working out. I don't know what's been going on. Nate put on some man weight in a good way since the last time we seen him. Nate has kind of like buffed up. Easily 10, 15 pounds of muscle on him. I don't know. Marriage has done Nate good. Okay, so they talk about their relationship. So they're painting and in black paint, and they're talking about their relationship. And Nate says that he really wants to work it out, but he wants to move slow. So when he says that word slow, that's a trigger word for Stasha. That's fighting words for her. She's ready to cut somebody when she hears the word slow down, take it day by day. She doesn't want to hear that. So he says, I don't want to get back at a full 100, but I just want to kind of take it slow. And then he tells her, when you told me that I got on Married at First Sight just to be in a relationship and not to get married, that hurt my feelings. And so then I distanced myself from you. And then she's thinking about it and she's like, no, I don't think that's how the conversation went. I think you're getting your time frames mixed up. You did not distance yourself from me when I said that. So now they start arguing about time frames and when was what said at what time. And then he looks straight at the camera and he's like, you see y'all, this is the reason why we can't ever progress and get along. And Nate was a little bit like, he looked like, he was a bit litty from the wine that he was drinking. His eyes were like slightly unfocused. I felt like he was kind of like slurring his words. He looked completely, totally relaxed. So it was kind of like he was drunk. And I'm like, Nate, why would you start drinking when y'all are trying to have like a very serious conversation about y'all's relationship? And Stasha was over it. The look on her face, her body language, her whole entire demeanor was just like, this is such a waste of my time. I don't know if it's because he was drunk and she knew that they were not going to get anything accomplished, or because they were arguing again, or because he wasn't saying what she wanted him to say. But Stasha was like completely over it. So he says, the fact that I'm here should tell you that, I want to be with you and I want to work this out. And then she goes, well, how long do you want to stay here? I guess, because they're still doing that whole dual residency thing. And so she's like, well, how long do you want to stay here? And he says, well, let's just take it day by day. That totally pissed her off. So she gets up, she walks away, because she's mad. And then eventually, she comes back. And then he says to her, I'm here today to show you that I want to be with you. And she's like, you're here today because we had to film. We were scheduled to film today. And that's why you're here. And that's where that ended. Morgan and Ben, not much to say here except, what am I going to say about this non-relationship, non-marriage, non-existence, everything? Morgan and Ben, they meet up at the gym. They're doing some jiu-jitsu, whatever they're doing, boxing and all this other stuff. And she says, I'm going to teach him some jiu-jitsu and I'm going to make a man out of him today. He needs a backbone in his relationships and he needs to be an alpha male. He needs to be more of an alpha male. Girl, who are you fooling? The whole entire time that you were on the show, for the 3 minutes that you were on it, you kept on talking about how Ben never apologized enough. You wanted him just to, every time you walked into a room, you wanted Ben just to drop down to his knees and be like, oh my God, Morgan, my goddess, my love, my lordess, my everything, my power. Thank you, Morgan. I'm just so sorry. I'm sorry, Morgan. Oh my God, Morgan, I'm so sorry. You wanted him to weep and holler and wail and apologize ad nauseum, apologize a gazillion times to you, kiss the ground that you walk on, just doing the most because he felt like he wasn't doing enough, the first 1,000 times that he apologized. But then here you are talking about he needed to be more of a man. He needed to be more of an alpha male, but you wanted him crying blood tears over the things that you said he did to you. So after they're done working out and everything, they were actually like wrestling with one another. They were like rolling around on the floor, wrestling. After all of that, she was like, I think me and Ben can be friends. Moving on. Alexis, Stasha, and Kristen, they all meet up for a pole dancing class. Okay, so they do the whole pole dancing thing. And then Kristen and Alexis are going to go on a double date. Okay, so they tell Stasha they're going to go on a double date. They're doing this whole Thelma and Louise thing, and they talk about Stasha and Nate. I guess they're going to be going to counseling, and they're going to still be splitting time between the two homes. I couldn't really concentrate on what the conversation was about because Alexis had on a top, and they were outside by the beach when they were doing their pole dancing, so she was dressed for the occasion, most definitely. But she had on like a crisscross top, where like it crisscrosses. And I mean, the girls were out. The girls were out. And I could not concentrate. Mitch goes to see his brother and his sister-in-law. The only interesting thing about that scene was that Mitch said he's thinking about dating again. Moving on to the double date. So Kristen and Alexis, they arrive first. And so they have those first date jitters and, what are they going to be like? And we're going to like them. Are they going to like us? The whole entire first date conversation. And then this really tall, attractive, white guy walks out. And I was like, oh, I wonder who he belongs to. Is that Alexis's date or Stash or Kristen's date? So he comes in and he sits by Kristen. Okay, so that's Kristen's date. Then an African American gentleman comes in and he sits down next to Alexis. But when Alexis and the African American guy met or greeted each other, they gave each other like a really big hug. And when Kristen was with her date, when her date walked in, it was kind of like a so-so hug. So they sit down, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because it really doesn't matter. This is another scene that we could have done without. Kristen and Alexis are not going to see these men ever again in life. Why are we watching this? Why are we watching this? Alexis was just there to support Kristen. She really wasn't trying to date this guy. And Kristen is going to be moving to New York City. And this guy's in California. So why are we watching them going on a double date? And so at the end of it all, Kristen was like, well, there was real chemistry between us. Where? When? Where was this chemistry, Kristen? I saw no chemistry whatsoever. None. The guy was very stiff. He was very shy. He didn't really talk a lot. He wasn't very talkative. His head was down the whole entire time. Alexis and her dude, they were the ones that were carrying the whole conversation. Kristen was, even Alexa, she was trying to like pull Kristen's date into the conversation, but he was giving very simplistic answers. But she saw all this chemistry. This is the thing that I've said about Kristen throughout the whole entire season. She's one of those people that when she meets a man, she's like, oh my God, there's chemistry. Oh my God, this is my future husband. Oh my God, when's our wedding date? She just takes it too far when she doesn't have anything to work with. So she was like, well, he's attractive and he's my type, but he's not really knocking my socks off, or whatever the hell she said. Useless scene, absolutely pointless and a waste of time. Moving on to Nate and Stasha. So they're back at home together, and Nate had on like this black tank top. The guns were out. The guns were out. He has been lifting weight. Nate looks like, from the time that we last saw him during the season and now, he looks like he spent about 10 years in prison and put on that prison weight and came out. That's what he looks like. I remember Nate being kind of scrawny, but baby, he has put on, like I said, a good 10, 15 pounds of pure D muscle. So they're in the kitchen, they're cooking, some HelloFresh meal. And I don't know what they were talking about. I have no idea what the conversation was about, because the way when he was eating from his bowl and they had like that profile of his arms. Anyways, moving on. Justin and Alexis. So they meet. And this is when things finally got interesting. So they meet to have a conversation. And Justin had a bone to pick with Alexis. So evidently, because I don't watch the after party with Rudy, and so I have no idea this was even a thing. This was even happening. But Evidently, when Alexis was on that after party with Keisha Knight Pulliam, they were talking about her and Justin's intimate life. And Alexis had mentioned that Justin cannot rise to the occasion. Okay, it did not manifest. And I don't think that she really said, first of all, I don't believe that should have been a topic of conversation, because the other person is not there. You don't know how they're going to feel about it. You don't know what their side of, we don't know, the audience, we don't know what his side of the story is. And something like that can be quite embarrassing to people, especially when you're going to say something that's not going to put them in the best light. So I don't think that they should have had that conversation, period. But the people want to know. People are curious about it. I think that she should have just said, you know what? We're just going to keep that to ourselves. That's our private life. We're just going to keep it to ourselves. Or she could have just said, well, like in every other aspect of our relationship, we really didn't get along. And so even in that area, we were not really getting along, or we were not really meshing. But instead, she said what she said. That's her truth, that he couldn't rise to the occasion. And so Justin was pissed off that she had said that. So he accuses Alexis, you talk about me to the whole wide world, talking about how I couldn't rise to the occasion. Alexis says she denied it. She was like, no, that's not exactly what I said. And then as she starts explaining herself, Justin butts in and he tells her to shut up. And I was like, oh, so that's what she meant when she said he's got that really ugly, angry side. Because I was even like, huh? I mean, I felt like he was saying shut up to me, the way he said it. And so he told her to shut up, and she looked at the camera and she was like, I know he did not just tell me to shut up. And so then Justin says, this is what he said. He says, you talked about how I couldn't rise to the occasion, but you didn't give the reason why I couldn't rise to the occasion. He says, because your pH balance was off. And I was like, Lord have mercy. Thank God, Alexis paid it dust. Paid it complete dust. That she didn't get into it. She was just like, okay, whatever. What else you got? My head's too big. My feet's too big. My breath stinks. What else you got? And so then he walks away. He takes off his mic, throws it on the ground, and he walks away. She immediately calls, Thelma, Kristen, and, tells them what went down, what happened. And then Kristen's response was, well, do you think he's still going to come to my party? Justin, you are the most immature man I've ever seen in my life, because first of all, let's talk about it. Now let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's talk about Justin and his immaturity. The first thing is when he was on stage at the reunion and he wanted to call out Nate. Let's just say it. Let's just make it bare bones. When he was like calling out Nate for being a homosexual. First of all, I am not a fan of using homosexuality as a weapon to attack someone else, because homosexuality is not a negative thing. It's not a negative thing. You cannot take what someone is like and use it as a weapon to insult someone else. You can't take this sexuality and use it as a weapon to attack someone else, because then you're just stigmatizing homosexuality and you're just showing how much of a homophobe you are. That's all you're doing. You can't do that. Like I said in another video, on another video I had said, I talked about the same topic. It's like if you're trying to insult someone and you call them black. Especially if it was to someone who wasn't even black, and you're thinking that you're hurting their feelings by referring to them as being black or African American. You think that you're saying something that's going to hurt them. Well, there's nothing wrong with being black. Why would you use that as a weapon? And that's exactly how I feel about homosexuality. When he was trying to imply that Nate was coming on to him, he was basically saying that Nate is gay, and he was doing that to embarrass him. He thought that he was going to humiliate him. He thought that he was going to emasculate him, because what Justin sees in Nate is what he wishes he was, because of the fact that there was this, generalized opinion that Justin was weak and emotional and crying all the time. And Nate was not seen that way. Nate was seen, I guess, as being more masculine, being the ideal male or whatever the hell. And Justin knew that, and he didn't like that, because this is at the reunion. So this is after Justin is probably reading all the comments on social media, the memes, all that stuff that was going on social media. So he wanted to come back and he wanted to steal or break down Nate's masculinity because no one ever talked about Nate being emotional or crying or a crybaby or whatever. So he wanted to break down his masculinity, and he thought that the best way to do it was to call him out for being a homosexual, weaponizing homosexual. There are some very masculine homosexual men out there. Okay. Being gay does not mean that you are not masculine. And the fact that he thought that it would emasculate Nate just shows how ignorant Justin is. He's a homophobe, and it's just all the way wrong. So that's number one, immature. Then talking about Alexis's pH balance. That is so tired and so weak. To come back to you feel like, well, the way I'm going to attack a woman is to talk about, oh, and you stink. Really? Like, that's the best thing that you can come up with. That is like the weakest comeback, the lamest comeback of all, to be like, oh, and by the way, you stink, or your pH balance is off. So it just shows how immature his mind is. And his mindset is just like, he has not advanced. I mean, low vibrations all the way around. He has not advanced to where we are in 2022. I don't know where Justin is. I don't know what orbit he's floating around, but he is not in 2022. It's just weak. It's just so terribly, terribly weak and immature to try to call out a woman for, her pH balance being off. Like, this hasn't been said a gazillion times before. Anyways, let's move on. So Alexis tells Kristen, when Kristen was like, is he going to come to my party? Alexis was like, I don't know, but I don't want you to disinvite him, because she still has this really soft spot in her heart for Justin. Moving on, the going away party. So it said on the screen, going away party. And I was like, yes, finally, my God. I think this was like an hour and 30 minutes in. I was like, oh my God, finally, we're getting to the end of all of this. But then it said pre-party. And I'm like, oh, hell no. We're not doing a pre-party to the party. Let's get to it. The pre-party was lame. It was just all the women getting together minus Stasha. I don't really care what the hell they talked about. It really doesn't matter. Moving on. The day of the party. Everybody arrives one by one, whatever, couple by couple. And when Mitch shows up, Luna immediately runs to him and jumps on him. She misses her daddy. And Kristen said that he gave Luna a better welcome than he gave her. Justin is the very last one to arrive. Obviously, this looks like it was planned by the producers to make him the very last one, so that there could be that awkward entrance where everybody's laughing and talking and getting along, and all of a sudden here comes Dopey, with his thundercloud over him, and then immediately the mood changes. The air is completely sucked out of the room. Everybody gets really awkward, and it was just a hot mess. So in his confessional, I think the producers asked him something like, so what did you think of everybody when you walked in? And he was like, they were fake as AF. And then I was like, why is he even there? If you don't like 3/4 of the people there, you were trying to fight one of them, you can't stand your ex-wife, why are you even there, Justin? But he says that he needed to put closure on everything. Okay, fine. So it's very awkward with Justin there. Nobody can really relax because he's just, lurching around, walking around like Mr. Doom and Gloom. They can't really feel relaxed and have a good time. Some people are avoiding him. Some people don't know what to do with him. So Mitch felt really bad for him. So Mitch goes over and he talks to him. And, whatever. Stasha asked Kristen, how she felt being around Mitch. And Kristen says that she felt fine being around Mitch. And she goes, and I really wouldn't mind, hanging out with him. And Stasha looked at her like, what? I didn't look at her like, what? Because I know that she does want to hang out with Mitch. She still wants to be with Mitch. She wants to be with Mitch. She wants to work it out with Mitch. Point blank, period. So I wasn't surprised. I Stasha, can't you tell that Kristen is still holding something in her heart for Mitch? And so then she's in the kitchen by herself, and Mitch comes in, and he has a gift for her because it's her birthday as well, right? So he has a gift for her, and she opens up the little bag and she takes out the card, and she couldn't even read. First she says, can I read out loud? And he was like, sure, go ahead, read out loud. She couldn't even get past Dear Kristen before she just started bawling, because she still loves this man very, very much. And so I was like, damn, what the hell did he write? Because, she was kind of reading it before she read it out loud, and it got her so choked up and so goddamn emotional. And I was like, what the hell did he say for this reaction? So, Mitch reads it for her. So he reads it out loud. I don't remember what it said, but it was really nice. It was sweet. It wasn't anything profound. Okay, it wasn't anything like seriously deep. He was acknowledging her for the woman that she is, saying that, she's beautiful, she's confident, she's got it going on. He sees great things for her. She's a catch, just all these wonderful, beautiful things. But like, I guess coming from the man that she loves, these words had like a much, much, much deeper meaning, because I would have been like, oh, that's so sweet. Thank you, Mitch. But for her, she was like, anyways. Moving on. So the gifts that he got her were not expensive gifts, but they're very meaningful gifts. So let's move on from there. And then she actually says that there are lingering feelings for Mitch. Yeah, we know. Alexis notices that Justin has been alone all night, and so she feels really bad for him. She says that she still has a soft spot for him, so she wants to talk to him one-on-one. And so they go off alone, and she apologizes to him for what she said on the after party, and he accepts her apology. And she says that she will always look out for him. And he was like, I kind of disagree on that. And so they agreed to disagree. And he says that he took her apology with a grain of salt. It didn't really mean that much to him. Moving on. So then Justin comes back to the group, and he wants to talk to Nate one-on-one. So the two of them go off and they talk, and he apologizes to Nate for saying that Nate made a pass at him. And he finally admits, I know that you really were not making a pass at me. Which proves that he was just trying to, he thought he was just insulting him by insinuating that he was gay. So, they apologize to one another. Nate also apologizes for acting out of character at the reunion. Nate says that in this confessional, he says that he did accept Justin's apology, but the damage has been done and their friendship can never really be repaired. And yeah. So then Justin comes back because the whole entire group is there. And he says that, he wants to say something to the group. And so they all get quiet, and he stands up and he apologizes to the group in general. And then he apologizes to individual people specifically for how he hurt them. Like, for calling Kristen fake and for, whatever. So he apologized to all of them individually except for Alexis. He completely skipped over Alexis. And of course it was a jab at her. He wanted to single her out. He wanted to feel left out. He wanted to be known that I don't care enough about her to say anything to her. Justin being immature. Later on that night, everybody goes to bed. Alexis and Kristen, they're getting ready for bed. Kristen talks about how impressed she was by Nate's gift, because it was a lot of thought that he put into it. And she actually says this. She's like, you know what? I wonder if I should have given Mitch a second chance after we stopped filming. And Alexis was like, no. Don't do it. And so then Kristen is like, yeah, you're right. I have to remember how he treated me during my marriage. And so they talk about Justin's apology, and they talk about how it just really wasn't that genuine. And they both agree that he wasn't sincere. And that's about it. So the next morning, everybody leaves. Stasha and Nate, I guess, were still working on their marriage. I have no idea. Of course, we know about the fake marriage of Miguel and Lindy that's still perpetuating its fakeness. And everybody else went their separate ways. And good luck to everybody. Good riddance to everybody. We have finally made it to the end of Married at First Sight Season 15. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. On your way out, please do not forget to rate the video and subscribe. And I'll definitely talk to you later. Bye.